Trina right here with day 18 of 365 days of realizations. I am so excited to share with you today an experience I had this morning. And I want to premise it by saying, as I've mentioned before, that experience is the only true teacher, that to know something as the truth, we can read it in a book, we can be told it by someone else and they can share their experience, we can go see a teacher who can tell us it. But really to have it, to really know it, to enlighten us to that degree, to full on remembrance, we have to have it ourselves. We have to have that experience. So all those other things, books, teachers, teachings, they absolutely serve us because they are popping up possibilities. They are lighting up a spark that if we take and follow through that little nudge, then we can take ourselves through the experiential component of it fully into the remembrance that it's there to offer. That's what makes meditation so powerful. That's what makes the concept of self-awareness. I don't mean self-awareness, just self-awareness of my character play, but self-awareness of looking at it through the eyes of awareness and sort of seeing what the dynamic is at play and being able to step outside of it and have that level of self-inquiry. So it comes down to, when we explore these things, are we willing to take it to the nth degree? Are we really willing to take it to that place of offering the possibility of emptiness and deepest expansion and full-on remembering? So I want to share one of those types of experiences. So for anyone that knows Bentinho Massaro, he's an awesome epic teacher of empowerment and enlightenment. I feel great love for him and for all of the teachings that he offers. And so recently he offered I think it's about a 1-hour video teaching from one of his programs where he was talking about deconstructing reality. And I don't know, I just ran with this in my own way. And I want to start again as a premise by saying that I recognize and fully understand, and I've played with it too, the idea of deconstructing reality all the way to that there is literally no constructs. And it is perfect. I mean, it's so beautiful to see through the illusion in that way. And I've been playing and dancing in that ever since he released it. Listened to it like 4 times. And just that idea of, as soon as you know it's not real, you can't play with it anymore. It's like what he said, when you play with your daughter and her Barbie doll and she thinks the Barbie doll is real, that vibes it. But if you were to go to anyone else, you'd know darn well the Barbie doll isn't real. So take that and play it with everything else in your world. It does. It changes everything. But the piece that I stumbled on today is a little more subtle. Well, actually, it's probably not more subtle, but it's also subtle. And it's an interesting noticing, because I think, though that might be what we're all reaching for, staying in that place or even getting there in that place, to that place, might not be as reachable for many people. And we are still living in this place of upping our constructs, and it serves us until it doesn't. So it's perfect. So here's what happened. I always get up at 4 a.m. every day so that I can do my energization, yoga, and meditation. It's how I start my day. I love it. It's part of what gets me all vibed up and move me into a deeper communion with myself so that I can activate that and live my life as if it's a walking meditation. Sounds great. It doesn't always work that way, but that's the intention. So this morning I woke up even earlier than 4, went to the washroom, and had a recognition that I'd been sitting up for 10 minutes. And I couldn't really think of any of the thoughts or remember any of the thoughts that had been, but I knew that I had just been sort of in a process of thoughts. And I found that sort of interesting. I don't really worry anymore. I don't think all that much. There's often just no thought. But I had a sort of recognition that there had been some thoughts, and I thought it was interesting that I didn't really remember them. And that caused me to then begin thinking about what causes thoughts. And I have 2 kids, and so I know they're 12 and 15, that when I've talked to them, there is this end within the world. There's a perception that we think our thoughts, that we thought our thoughts into being, or we think our thoughts into being. And so I just tuned into that as I was laying back in my bed, and I had this recognition that we don't think our thoughts into being. They're just there. That's how I feel it. It's like Paramahansa Yogananda said, thoughts are universally rooted, not individually rooted. So they're just available in the field. And so why do they come to see me? I see them as like little friends. They just take their directive from me. So the thoughts show up that are in attune with me. Interesting. So as I was laying there, I thought, well, that's interesting. So if I'm going to lay here and let these thoughts come, I might as well, since I know that I am the creator, and I've been working through True Infinity, and I'm just I'm finishing up some of the last empowerment teachings. So if I'm going to stand in that place of being like unequivocally, doubtless, so I know that I create every single moment of my life. I see through this illusion. I know it's an illusion. I know it's here to show me things, for me to play and for me to master. Then I am going to choose what thoughts are going to come and play with me. I'm not creating them in the sense of that the thoughts are already there, but I'm creating the truth of the experience of which ones come. Because remember, thoughts are the precursor to seeing something show up. And it has been said often, I think by Bentinho, but others, that the emotion, the nudge, is the first essence of, can you take this? Can you get whatever you're being shown? Or does it need to really go into a full-blown manifestation? And so from that place, I laid in my bed and I was like, okay, so this is all an illusion. I'm gonna call in the thoughts I want. This is all an illusion. I can see through it. I'm seeing through the illusion. I'm owning the illusion. I'm creating everything. Everything I see is my creation. I own it. I accept it. I'm in awareness. From awareness, I see it. I take charge of my energy. And if it's something that I want to be different, then I just move into that difference. And I take it seriously in the sense that I know it's my vibration that's calling it to me, so I don't even doubt it. I just decide and go and decide and go. So this is what I was playing with, and I love my body vehicle, and I love knowing it's an illusion, and yet at the same time feeling like it's so real, and I delight in all of that, and I love knowing that it's filled with vitality, and that every single cell in my body or particle or essence or whatever it is that makes this thing up, that makes it seem so real, is all vibrating in unison and in that truth and in that alignment, in that well-being. And so I'm on this like epic rampage, and more thoughts are coming, and it's taking me higher and higher. And I start to feel these feelings of bliss, and unbelievably so, in the middle of that, I got this pain in my stomach. And I had a few little things over the course of a couple days that sort of felt like a cleansing as the new version of me sort of settled in, and blah, 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 blah. And I know that all of this is nonsense, but we're all trying to make sense of the nonsense. So this is the best I can do. So anyway, as I was laying there, this pain came, and it was like, hey, hi, it invited me to come and see it. And in that moment, I went. It was hard to stay focused, and then I'm creating these thoughts. So immediately my mind tried to come up with a reason, tried to come up with an explanation, and ultimately a solution. That's what the mind wanted, is I don't like this feeling, so I want it to be different. And in there, I was able to just take a deep breath, sort of slow myself down, and begin deconstructing it all. Like I remember Bentinho saying that the pain isn't in your knee. I mean, if you let go of all the illusion of the body, then where is it even? It's a sensation. So I started to move back into like, it's a sensation. It's just a sensation. And I gave it no meaning. And it was just like, it's just a sensation, just there. And I was able to tune into awareness, which just sees it as a sensation. Nothing's going on here. It's just a sensation. And then I had a moment where a little thought came, again, pulling me to that idea of what's going on here. And I decided to watch where that would go, if my character went with it. And it was so cool because I ended up with seeing multiple different ideas of how this could play out. Simply just like surrendering and sitting with it, and it just passes. I return back to the feeling of pure vitality. Not only that, but I'm amped up in my creatorship because I feel like I had something to do with it by choosing that focus. 2, it takes a little bit longer. It gets a little worse, but then it gets better. Maybe something happens in the outer world that helps shift it. Maybe I go to the doctor, was another one. Maybe I end up having a bunch of tests run. Maybe I go to the hospital. Maybe it's something like my appendix. Maybe I die. These all sort of showed up as possibilities. And what was so interesting is I so felt in that moment, whatever I choose, the thoughts are going to come. It's going to amplify that. Because remember, thoughts are independent on their own. They exist just as that one thought, but they really like to have friends. And so they will start to activate as you activate more. With one thought, you'll start to pull more thoughts, and they become like a thought train, or the thoughts form an orbit that surrounds you. And there's no doubt that as those thoughts multiply, it gets harder and harder to then choose thoughts that are free of that. So the idea that in any given moment, we can choose the same, we can choose a little higher or a little lower, but as the lower gets lower, it's harder to then choose the higher. I think about Abraham Hicks' emotional scale in this way, though this would be kind of a thought scale, but it works the same way. So from that place of recognition and seeing all these things, and I did have little playing outs of them, like, what would I be learning in all of this? What was I supposed to be getting? I felt like this pain had come for a reason, and it was going to stay until I got it. Again, a construct, but was serving me in that moment. And so I just sort of sat with it and surrendered. And you know, what was so interesting is one thing that arose was, what if my experience of any one of these scenarios helps the other three beings that I spend most of my time with, my partner and my two kids? What if there was something in it for them? Could I surrender to that? Am I willing to completely let go of every aspect of control so that whatever needs to happen can happen? That was a hard one, especially around like the end of this character's experience here, or going into some deep thing that isn't really what I want to do. So I just laid in this peace. And I felt, you know, at times I felt the pain sort of track with where I was going with my thoughts, which was so cool. And I also felt this peace come through me that was like, everything's going to be okay. Everything's perfect. Have faith. And I can't even explain it, because often when we hear the word trust, it's juxtaposed against no trust. And it's also juxtaposed about trust of what? There's a little bit of that faith, like faith in God, faith in source, faith in someone. What is it? Faith in myself. But that's not what it was. This was just faith in its purest form, defies definition. So I just rested in that. And the pain was still there. And I was like laying on my side. I had been in this sort of meditative flow, sort of self-awareness process. And I just kind of started to feel really kind of woozy. I wasn't sleeping, but I knew that something was going on, and I was just letting all the shifts happen. And I really felt into this, like, I choose wellness. I choose absolutely 100% to know my well-being in this moment, to know the vitality in this body vehicle, even though it's an illusion that is here to serve this experience for me. And I have no doubt, absolutely no doubt, that I am still supposed to be here, that I can turn around from this and just, it's nothing. And in that moment, I had a clean recognition that I've had this knowledge my whole life, that I've always known that I could have anything I wanted, that I could create anything I wanted. And the thing that got in my way was I was afraid to say it to someone else because they didn't like it. And because when I did say it, they teased me or said, ah, ha, ha, that's not true. They doubted for me, and I attracted that to myself. And so I couldn't sit with that. And so because of that, I played smaller. I didn't say with no doubt, this is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to be. And now I feel ready to step into that with no doubt. As I did that, the pain eased. Didn't completely ease till it was completely gone, but it eased to just being such a background thing, so small. Just a tiny little part. It was almost hard. I mean, I could identify a general area of my body, but it was no longer centered in any one point. And it just was kind of there. And there's a tiny edge of it still maybe in my field, but so much different. So it was an interesting process. I also had a recognition clearly when all those possibilities were in front of me of how it often works for people, how it's supposed to work and how it often works. That what happens is an experience happens. From that experience, well, we're always already by default calling thoughts to us. So there's already that set point. So whatever that is, then something happens circumstantially, whether it's in your body or in your environment, that then starts to attract other thoughts to you. Remember, you're creating it because of your offering, but it could seem like you're not, because they seem like you're thinking them, even though you're not. So they show up, independent nature of their own. A bunch of them get together, and then it amplifies the circumstance. So instead of then going back in and going, oh yeah, that's right, I create this. How do I need to be with this? Or take just a moment. That's how meditation helps. Just go inward and think about that. We often just let the thing take us. So then we keep letting those thoughts come. We keep letting more thoughts come. And believe me, there's like an endless supply of those thought trains. They'll just keep coming until they completely orbit you. And that is what happens. That leads so many people to experiences that they wish they didn't create, or they say they didn't create, but they did create them. They just weren't aware of their creatorship in it. So I love that idea that thoughts are universally not individually rooted. There is an infinite number of thoughts. We get to be conscious about what thoughts we choose. So I know this was long, but I hope it helped through an example. And I invite you to go play with this idea of deconstructing thought, deconstructing reality, deconstruct it all the way back to the nothingness that it is, or whatever level in between you serves you. Hold constructs if they still work. Don't hold them if they don't. We're just all playing. It's just all fun. And I'm happy to be in this illusion with you, sharing whatever it is that I found out. And I invite you to share too. So take care. Have a beautiful Saturday. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.